Hello, everybody. Wolfang here. It's Saturday, July the 22nd. How's everybody doing? Pretty good here. Overcast. I thought we were going to get some rain, but nothing. Just a bunch of puffy clouds in the sky. Went out and checked on my tomato plants. Excuse me. And they're doing okay, I guess. I don't know. I did a short video on them. I noticed on a couple of the tomatoes because they're getting probably about this big. On the bottom of them, a couple of them I noticed they're brown spots. I don't. I guess that means that they're bad. But anyway, so I had Wednesday and Thursday off because of the injury I did to my wrist. I can't show it. I showed it already. But anyway, so I go back to work Friday, and my head HR guy called me in the office. I gave him the paperwork Tuesday after I got the stitches, but he called me in and he said that I guess basically to cover their butts, they needed a release that I was okay to go back to work. So I was like, all right. I said, it is kind of weird because in the paperwork, there's nothing. I mean, uh, nothing that says I can go back to work on this date. No anything on restrictions. So he told me, he said, go ahead and call them up and tell them, HR, your company needs back to work date and if there's any restrictions. So I call the hospital, and I'll tell you what, the phone rang probably 10 rings. I mean, it took a few minutes for him to answer the phone. Lady, the receptionist answers the phone. I told her who I was. I told her when I was in Tuesday morning and I was there for stitches. And I said, my company, our HR, they need a form stating that I'm okay to go back to work and if there's any restrictions. So she put me on hold and she comes back and she said that there's no restrictions. I was like, well, I said my hand, when I pick, I think 5 pounds, I pick it up, it hurts. So she's like, well, she basically just said that, I don't need the paperwork. So I hang up, I go back to HR and I tell him exactly what she said. And he's like, well, call him back and ask him to fax it. So I call him back and I said, they HR wants at least, can you fax us, that I'm allowed to go back to work. She's like, we can't fax. We don't fax. So I hung up again, went back to HR, told him what she said, and he just shook his head. He's like, this I don't believe this. She told me the receptionist told me on the phone that they would have the paperwork. I have to come pick it up. And that's what I told the HR guy. So he's like, okay. So this is all probably about 8 o'clock Friday morning. So he's like, well, you need to clock out, go up to the hospital, get the paperwork, and bring it back. And I was like, okay, but I'm thinking in my head, why should I have to clock out? This is work related. I should be able to stay on the clock. So I leave the office, go out, talk to my lead guy and our supervisor out there. And the supervisor's like, no, don't clock out. We actually have a code that we clock in on the computer, okay? Because I'm clocked in on a job, so I had to clock out of the job, and then he gave me the code to clock in, and it was medical. I was like, wow, I've been there 8 years, never knew that we had that on there. So I go to the hospital, talk to the receptionist. She's like, yes, they're expecting you. Have a seat, and they'll bring the paperwork up. And I'm like, all right. So I'm sitting in the waiting room, and they have some home improvement show on TV. I'm sitting there, blah blah blah, waiting and waiting. Finally, I don't know, maybe a half an hour went by. I'm like, how long does it take just to get paperwork saying I'm allowed to go back to work? So I get the paperwork, and that's literally all it said, that I was able to go back to work on the 21st yesterday. But I told her, I said, I have issues with my hand. I said, I do. I think some of the jobs, I'd say 25 pounds. And right now, there's no way I can lift 25 pounds with my hand. It's not happening. So I was like, you know what? I'm done with this. I leave. I take the paperwork back to work. I give it to HR. And I told him, I said, I tell you what, if I ever get hurt at work again, I do not want to go back to that hospital. So I gave him the paperwork. He looked at it, and he's like, what about the restriction? I said, I told her. I told the receptionist that I needed a return date, that I'm okay to go back to work, and restriction. And I didn't get the restriction. All I got was I could go back to work on Friday. So I told him, I said, look, I said, I know what's going on with my wrist. I said, I know the pain. I said, I'm not going to do anything stupid. He's like, well, can you work? I said, yeah. I said, our lead guy, I said, I've got a small job that I can put together. It's a control box. He's like, okay. He said, just be careful. I was like, all right. I was kind of like wondering if if I get messed up, thinking that I might sue him. I don't think I could, because it is workman's comp. But anyway, so that was my Friday. That was interesting. So, Merlin woke up. So anyway, so I was going through some news. Let me see if I can pull this up. I was just going through the news, and I came across this one. It says a retired Russian colonel proposes blowing up the North Pole to send a message to the West. Okay, what's that going to do? Let's blow up the North Pole to send a message. I was like, really? That's crazy. Let's blow up the North Pole. Oh, lordy. There's stupid shit going on everywhere. So there was that one. And I mean, I wasn't even going to read the article. So I was looking for other news, and I did hear, I think somebody put this out, maybe a couple of months ago, but now CDC is coming out ready for a triple pandemic. The CDC prepares for a winter of 3 bugs out there. 3 bugs out there. So they're talking the flu, COVID, and respiratory. Let's see, we're going to have the bugs out there, 3 viruses: COVID, the flu, and respiratory virus. Now, if you ask me, that's nothing but trying to scare people. I mean, look how some people are still wearing a mask from that COVID-19. But it's ridiculous. I mean, I don't know. If you're in good health, you should be all right. Um, it's 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 fear porn. I'm sorry. If you're in poor health, you're gonna get the flu. If you get a cold, it's gonna knock you on your butt. So just do the best that you can. Now, what about all these healthy people that we've heard about all of a sudden just dropping dead after having that done? I didn't take it. My wife did. I didn't. I did come down with it, and the only thing that I experienced, I didn't have body aches or anything. I had no taste. I couldn't taste anything for like a week, and that was it. So, but other than that, I just wanted to put a video out. Don't really have too much to say. I did want to share uh, about that Russian colonel that wants to blow up the North Pole. I don't know. It's like, what's that saying? What's the world coming to? So, anyway, this is Wolfgang. I hope everybody has a great Saturday, great weekend. And I'll chat with you all later. Blessed be. Stay safe. Share a smile with somebody. See you later.